This episode is presented to you by NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. With NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube and YouTube TV, you can watch your favorite teams' out-of-market Sunday games, plus watch up to 4 games at once with Multiview. Don't miss the race to the playoffs. NFL Sunday Ticket is now just $39 when bundled with YouTube TV, where you get even more football. Visit youtube.com/Spotify offer to sign up now. Lowest price on YouTube TV with base plan. Rest of 2023 season. Terms and embargoes apply. No cancellations.
Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of Vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Reboot your credit card with Apple Card, the credit card created by Apple. It gives you unlimited daily cash back that you can now choose to grow in a high-yield savings account that's built right into the Wallet app. Apply for Apple Card now in the Wallet app on iPhone and start growing your daily cash with savings today. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility requirements. Savings accounts provided by Goldman Sachs Bank USA. Member FDIC. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Columbia Sportswear. It's snowing again, and that wind chill is killer. But you're not worried about that because you shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection. It's warmth perfected with tiny gold dots that reflect your body heat inside and protect you from the cold outside. No snow or chilly temps can stop you now. Go out anyway. Shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection now at Columbia.com/infinity.
Welcome back to another episode of The Blue Turf. This is Thad Bell from The Blue Testament, and with me I have Eric Bergrud, one of the finest people in broadcasting in the MASL.
Wow, I was wondering where you were going to go with that, Thad. Thanks.
Well, I'm trying to do something different each week, and I probably don't succeed at that, but, got to have goals.
There you go.
Speaking of needing goals, the Comets could use some.
Where were we a couple weeks ago where we were talking about you're not going to win too many games in the MASL if you score 3 or 4 goals, and that's what happened. So difficult loss, I would say, to Florida this past Sunday, a 5-3 loss, and the 5th goal. Strange bounces happen in indoor soccer, but ultimately you're not going to win too many games only scoring 3, and it was unfortunate because we had said on last week's podcast that here's a chance to build momentum, and heading into the playoffs, you need to go into somebody else's arena and show that you can win. That didn't happen.
Yeah, it did not happen at all. We kind of thought with Zach Reggett joining the team, he would maybe continue his hot streak after scoring 5 goals in the first game. I think Florida was ready for him. I think they were looking to, I don't know, maybe they were motivated, excited. I'm not sure the right word there, but just like Zach was eager to put some goals on his former team, I think his former team was looking to shut him down in the return match. So,
well, and they did that. I think once again, and not just Comets fans in the Twitch chat wanted to make this game all about Neto and giving up goals, including the one that Ruggles scored on a free kick right outside the box. But you're not going to win too many games scoring 3 goals. And so I spent more time than I thought on Sunday challenging fans who wanted to make this all about goalkeeping when ultimately it's a team sport. Neto didn't create the free kick situation. There were too many odd man rushes. I think that what's been a challenge for the Comets, particularly with Togba out, but maybe exacerbated by trading Lucia Tetsane, is the ability to be counterattacked because you now don't have the services of arguably your 2 fastest players. So there was a lot that happened there. It's just very easy to point to one aspect of the game or one person and say that's the reason why things didn't go the way we planned.
Yeah. I don't read the chat nearly as much as you do, so I wasn't watching any of that part. But looking at the stats, Kansas City had 38 shots, Florida had 24. They only scored 3 on those 38 shots. That's not Neto's fault in any way, shape, or form. I don't know how they can blame that on him. So,
well, it's just easy, and I say this having played the position, that that's the price you pay, or the weight that you bear for being in that position, because ultimately any mistake or anything that happens, and thousands of sets of eyes are on you, but to be successful and to win championships in this league, it's a full team effort. And we're not going to see the Comets score 12 goals a game. That outburst against Florida was terrific. Consistency on offense is what's going to get the job done.
yeah, I totally agree. And again, I will blame goalies for some things. I mean, you and I have had our disagreements about that in the past at times. But yeah, you can't blame Neto for the Comets not scoring. You can maybe blame him for giving up 1 goal that maybe he should have saved, maybe 2 at the most. But that still doesn't put the Comets in a win column.
That's right. And then that also diminishes the saves that he made, the many saves that he made that kept the Comets in the game. I think if we're going to talk about stats, the one stat on the MASL website that grabs my attention, and it's not really a stat, it's a column, is if you look at the standings in the Eastern Conference and you look at away records, it almost lines up perfectly with the standings. So the teams that have the best away records, Milwaukee and Florida, are 1-2 in the conference. The teams with the bigger struggles on the road are in last place or near last place in the standing. It's not that difficult to figure out, and we've talked about it how many weeks here at that. But ultimately, to be successful in this league or any league, you have to get results on the road. And as we get closer to the playoffs, we're 2/3 of the way in. The way the MASL playoffs format works is the lower place seed has to win at home, and they have to win either a regulation game on the road or an extra time game on the road. There's no way you can advance in the playoffs without winning something on the road.
Right.
And that's the task for the Comets, is they have 8 games home and away to put themselves in a position to be successful in the playoffs.
And if I looked correctly earlier, they have 4 home and 4 away remaining. They need to do something on the road, but they still got to take care of business at home also. They went into last week tied for second with Florida. You know, they were below them because of the games played. Or for goal differential probably. But anyway, they were tied for second. They come out of that weekend in a solid 4th place after Florida beat them and Baltimore won and passed them up in total points. They need points. I asked Leo this morning. I went to training this morning at, go ahead, say where I went to training at.
The world famous KC Soccer Dome.
Right. And he said they were a little disappointed with where they were at this point in the season. And which is quite understandable. They thought they would be in a better spot, and they need to perform more consistently going forward, which is pretty much coach speak, but that's also true.
So you look at what do they have left, both home and away. We'll talk in depth about Milwaukee coming up this weekend. They have another home game against Florida. That'll be critical. They have yet to play Baltimore, and so they have home and away matches there. And Harrisburg, they have home and away matches. And so it's all there in front of them as they're trying to map out, what do we do this last third of the season?
Yeah, they're not easy teams. I mean, they're playing the top of the division except for Harrisburg, and they don't get that until the end. So they have to make points against the Wave, Baltimore, and Florida.
That's correct. And those 3 teams right now are ahead of them in the standings. So ultimately, they can climb the ladder. It's just doing it one game at a time. And I think we're going to see a different Milwaukee lineup than what we saw last game, where Coach Giuliano Oliviero rested some of his players, didn't bring them down on the road trip because they had played the night before. This is their only game this weekend, so winning at Cable Dome Arena will be the focus for the Wave.
And only game for the Comets, so there's no excuse not to have your best lineup out there for both teams that's available.
That is correct. And as we look at Milwaukee coming in, we talk a lot about Ian Bennett for sure, and he loves scoring at Cable Dome Arena. Willie B has been sensational in goal for them, and I think he's made a huge difference. He's not the only difference, but when you have confidence in your goalkeeper, you play like a top team in Milwaukee is right now. But somebody who didn't make the trip last time, and we're fully expecting to see him on Sunday, is Derek Huffman. So yes, they still list him as defender, but he is target forward, had a hat trick this weekend, and he continues to pound in goals, and not just goals, but great plays. Sweet assist on one of the outstanding goals this week. And so I expect to see his name in the score sheet this Sunday. And so the question is, how do the Comets play against him? And what do we expect from the fans who tend to express their opinions about Mr. Huffman every time he comes into Kansas City? He relishes that, and I think he'll play off of that.
Derek Disciplinary Report Huffman? No. I don't know if we can go with that nickname.
Well, we can talk about the DRC. That seems to be a topic of the week, but maybe we ought to close out Milwaukee before we pivot there.
True. All right. So we do know, I asked Leo, how the health of the team was. Basically, everybody but Togba should be available. Lots of players have little knocks at this point in the season, but everybody should be available. The one I will say question mark would be Zach Reggett, and not because he's hurt, but because he's with the U.S. futsal team in a training camp. And I was told he should be back on Sunday. I think I've heard other people say, yes, he will be. We'll see. I do think he would be there, but the sad thing is he hasn't had this week of training with the Comets to continue to get in sync.
Well, there's that. It's a great honor anytime you're called up for a national team. So I think the Comets, it's what you should do, is release your players when they get a call up. I think that, sure, they miss a week with him. He will get quality time in, so it's not like he's taking a week of vacation. I'm expecting him to be there because the game starts at 4:00, and at approximately 2:40 p.m., Nick Bassos and I will be doing our recorded pregame preview, and I'm intending very much on Misters Huffman and Reggett to be there. So if they're not in the arena by 2:40, we're going to be scrambling quite a bit to pick other players to spotlight.
The holidays are a time to feel and create joy. And what could be more joyous than the look on her face as she unwraps a stunning new jewelry piece from Blue Nile? How about getting 50% off your purchase? Blue Nile offers premium quality, priced below traditional retail. Their online experts are available 24/7 to answer any questions and make sure you've picked the perfect gift. For a limited time, you can get 50% off at BlueNile.com. That's 50% off at BlueNile.com.
Yeah, I would like to see that scramble just for the fun sake of it, but I do want Zach Reggett there. And the only reason I mentioned the training aspect of it, I know he's getting quality training with the futsal team. It's all good. It's just that you're trying to get in sync with teammates and get more, knowing their patterns and everything. You could take a guy like Zach and put him on almost any team, and he's going to help score goals for him. But getting that regular shift of knowing where everybody will be, that comes with repetition, that comes with understanding and, being around people. So I think that's just one of the things they missed. The game in Florida, going back to that for a second, they were able to help. Florida was able to keep him from getting on the score sheet. I think just because he wasn't completely in sync with the Comets, that offense wasn't as in sync. The game where he scored the 5 goals, he didn't score. The Comets had the first 4 or 5, I forget, and then he started racking them up after that. But that's when the Comets had a lead, and Florida was pushing it a little bit. So getting him in sync will be key for them going down the road. If as long as they make the playoffs and they're all in sync, he could do some damage.
Well, and let's talk just a little bit about the playoffs. So in this year's format, 5 teams qualify. The fourth place team and the fifth place team will play a 1-game wild card setup, for lack of a better term, at the fourth place's home arena, right? So if the regular season were over today, the Comets would be hosting UCFC for that play-in game. Winner of that game would get the first place team in a 3-game series. First game, playing it out the way it'd be right now, would be here in Kansas City, and then you have to go to Milwaukee and win something there. And that's my point about winning in the regular season. Don't wait till the playoffs to show that you can win somewhere. Win there in the regular season and set that expectation. And so again, the Comets will have an opportunity once again in Milwaukee. They haven't played Baltimore yet. They'll have opportunities there. Florida, they had their one chance because 2 games here at Cable Dahmer Arena this year, 1 game away. And so we'll see where they end up. If you were to put me on the spot, yes, they qualify regardless of how things play out, but that's not good enough for this franchise. Just qualifying, just eking in isn't what they've expected to do. They expect to advance further than they did last year, which they were, if you recall, they got knocked out in the semis by Florida last year. So what would be better than that would be advancing to and then hopefully through the finals.
That is going to be a difficult road at this point.
Well, I agree, and yet there's some wild cards that we don't know about that. One is, what's the prognosis for James Togba? Will he be able to come back in time for the playoffs? Because he was their MVP before his injury, and he makes a huge difference in all aspects of the game, particularly on defense. His goal production is up this year. His first step is something to behold, but if they could bring him back for defense, that creates some interesting matchups as you would look at progressing there. The other wild card is Zach Reggett. How much time will he have to get in sync with all of his players? And if he can make runs like he did, we saw the glimpse of it against Florida, getting 2 goals, 3 goals from him in a do or die type match, that would be critical.
And totally agree on both. Hopefully Togba will be at some point. I asked him again about his health and, if he was getting close, and the first response is, yeah, he's getting closer. He's working with Sean, the trainer, to, on getting on that path back. I forget the exact words, but I saw him walk into the soccer dome this morning, but it was well after training. So he's probably just getting some check, being checked, and might be doing some one-on-one work or something, but they sound hopeful that he would be back in the season. So let's keep our fingers crossed for the Comets for that.
That is for sure. And we'll see. In the end, whether you're looking at standings, whether you're looking at power rankings, which now MASL Monday is put out there the last couple weeks, that's all fine and good. It generates online buzz. It gets fans talking. In the end, it's who gets to the Ron Newman Cup championship. And do you put your team in a position to be successful? I'd say Milwaukee has done that. I would be shocked if they don't win the regular season title. And it's up to them to hold serve, to use a tennis term, as they progress through the playoffs.
All right. Let's see. Was there anything else interesting that happened in the league this week?
Oh, the DRC, huh? I guess we could talk a little bit about Mesquite. I guess we could talk a little bit about what happened there. There's also a press conference taking place. We're recording here on Wednesday, and Commissioner Keith Tozer is going to be participating in a press conference at 9 p.m. Eastern, which is 8 p.m. Central, in Guadalajara, likely to announce an expansion team there in Mexico. And so there's been talk about Sonora coming back, talk about Guadalajara coming in. This will be a very interesting MASL in the 2023-24 season, because we've already seen from Monterrey and from Chihuahua the quality of players homegrown players in Mexico, and you add a city like Guadalajara, which has a great soccer pedigree, great teams around there, and players looking for time. It could be a shift in the balance here in the MASL next year, but that's next year. Let's talk about this year. So a funny thing happened on the way to the soccer's goal for an undefeated 22-23 season. They didn't quite make it in Toyota Arena at Empire. They got thumped a little bit by the Strikers a week and a half ago, and then they decided to go to Texas. They won in Dallas, and Dallas kept that game pretty close. I was pretty impressed with how the sidekicks matched up, but a big then turnaround to go against Mesquite, and Mesquite won, but it got really what's the right word, Dad? Dicey.
I'll just say ugly.
Ugly, yeah, at the end of the game. And the league issued a number of suspensions to players, in one case to a coach, in one case to a front office employee of the Outlaws, and nobody wins with that. For San Diego, what's been a challenge is in successive weeks, the DRC, I like that name, the DRC, Disciplinary Review Committee, has reviewed video and has issued suspensions. There were suspensions that came about after that game in Ontario, the Empire Strikers loss. And then with this one, additional suspensions of players. And so San Diego is looking toward a trip with Mexico coming up, and with a depleted roster. So they get a really tough matchup this Friday against Chihuahua, and Chihuahua has shown they can go toe-to-toe with them. Chihuahua took them to the extra time game in the playoffs last year and beat them at home last year, and I would expect Chihuahua to give them a really tough game this Friday night, and they will be short some of their top players.
Yeah. Did you get any sense of what really started that whole incident after the game? Was it, I mean, I watched a little bits of the game, but was it that chippy throughout the game, or was it trash talking?
I don't know that it was chippy. I mean, there's always chirping. I don't want to say in 100% of the games that, but there's chirping in a lot of the games between players, etc.
Oh, yeah.
I am trying to remember if I even had the sound on. I was multitasking when I was watching the game, and all of a sudden there was a fracas on the other side of the field, and people were pushing each other, and then you saw punches thrown. And I did watch a replay a couple times just to try to get a sense of what happened, and it's not clear who started it. But in the end, does it really matter who started it? We're not in kindergarten anymore. It's ultimately who all was involved, and the league decided to step in and basically say, this is not what we stand for as a league, and we're going to punish people accordingly. And they fined both teams as well.
Yes. Which is, nobody wants to spend that money. So yeah, what, three players for San Diego with red cards in the end?
Yeah, well, one was issued on the field. So yeah. Gerardo Gerardo got a red card issued right there at the end of the game. And then on top of that, Mitchell Cardenas and Taboy Morgan were issued red cards sort of after the fact for post-game violent conduct. And so Cardenas got 2-game suspension, and Taboy Morgan got a 3-game suspension. So difficult challenges on the Outlaw side. Coach Tattoo was issued a 1-game suspension for lack of control of his team. And it was not a pleasant situation, not a great advertisement for soccer. What I thought was interesting was later that weekend, Tacoma played Chihuahua, and sort of the opposite of what you saw after the game. So they played 2 games that weekend in Tacoma, and both teams took a group photo, sort of a kumbaya moment between Chihuahua and Tacoma, showing that they were united in the name of soccer there. It was a slightly different scene than what we saw at the end of the Mesquite San Diego game. Oh,
for sure. It seems to have been more of a theme with San Diego lately when they lose, at least.
So it's an interesting challenge with the Sockers in that there's been such a buildup to them being invincible, and the last couple weeks haven't been their best weeks in the recent years. And I think their fans are feeling a bit like they're being singled out by the league because of all of these suspensions. And I think that there may be a little bit of player frustration too, but ultimately this is a franchise that, yes, they've won 16 championships, but they're back-to-back champions. So don't even think historically, just think now. This is a team that the last 2 years has lifted that Ron Newman Cup. And so I expect them to play with a significant amount of pride going into that Mexican trip. But if they were to lose one or two, that could create all sorts of interesting chaos there in that Western Conference.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Chihuahua is not that far off of them. So
Chihuahua is 3 points behind. Empire is 3 points behind. They have their games in hand here, so San Diego can afford, if you want to call affording to lose, they can afford to lose. But once you start believing that either another team is invincible or that you're susceptible, how does that play out the rest of the way? I still think they're the odds-on favorite to repeat, to get 3 championships in a row, but we'll see what happens this weekend.
All right. Let's see. Any other news that we should cover today, Eric?
Well, we'll have a chance to talk next week. We'll reflect on Milwaukee. We'll preview Baltimore, whom we haven't seen yet. And the one thing I would say about Baltimore, kind of like the Comets, really, really good at home, but on the road haven't gotten the results. And I think that there's a psychology of going into Baltimore. Fans complain that it's a small field, but ultimately there are 2 small fields in this league, and some teams have figured out how to win there. Some teams haven't. And for the Comets, it's an opportunity to grab points against that team that's right in front of them in the standings. And but before that, it's Milwaukee. That we talked about do or die games or must win games. For me, 3 points is the only acceptable result.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for joining again, Eric, and looking forward to this weekend. Looking forward to next year when there's maybe 4 teams from Mexico in MASL and they have their own division.
We'll see.
But yeah, so far actually, and just going back to that for a second, I've actually really enjoyed watching the Mexican teams and having dealt with them a little bit. They have been very class act in the interactions that I have had with them. So
totally agree. So on the field, professional,
perhaps more so than some of the American teams.
Yeah, I was gonna say both on the field and off the field,
yes,
professionally run. And I think it's been an asset to the league. And if we're looking at potentially 16 teams next year, could we go back to a 4-division, 4-team format? Maybe. We'll see. But what we'll hear from Comets fans is, does that mean we have to play Milwaukee and St. Louis all the time again next year? We'll see what they come up with in the schedule making.
They got to at least let the Comets play Harrisburg a few times to get some points. Sorry.
Well, they do this year. It's just no games against Utica. So there you are.
Fair enough. All right. Thanks again for joining, Eric. And I think we are out.